All right, what do you say we get this party started? So, welcome to Skokie Bike Network's Tales from the Trails. I can't tell you how cool it is to be in a room full of cyclists. How many of you rode to Sketchbook today? Now, how many of you out there are attending your first storytelling show? Welcome. So let's talk a little bit about this, just like we do with bike riders. You know, we have new bike riders. We talk about the rules of the road and the hand signals and all that kind of stuff. So you will hear true stories. You will hear a song, and we're even going to have a sonnet. So when I introduce our storytellers, and when our storytellers leave the stage after they've told their amazing stories or done their amazing poems or sung their amazing songs, I expect you to, in a polite and appropriate way, to go crazy! And if a story is funny, it's okay, you can laugh. And if a story is sad or tugs at your heart, you know what? It's okay to cry. Now, I got a lot of thank yous. First of all, Melissa from Sketchbook, thank you so much for letting us invade your beautiful brew pub. Skokie Fine Arts Commission in the village of Skokie, thank you for supporting Skokie Bike Network, and thank you for joining with us to bring these stories as part of the month-long bike event that the village is sponsoring. We'd like to thank Mike Kerr of Christopher Burke Engineering. He donated the cruiser that we're giving away today. If you're interested in that cruiser, please sign the sign-up sheet. He also helped us procure these snap bracelets. You guys got one? Keep it on your bike, put it on your pants leg. We'd like to thank George Andros, who's a new resident of Skokie. Moved to a condo, sold his house in the south suburbs, and he had to clear the garage of this really cool 1950s Sears Roebuck tandem that still works. I rode it here from my house this morning. So, thank you, George, and welcome to Skokie. I'd like to thank Elise, who's at the front, getting your signatures. Ben will have a drawing at the end of the show where we will give away the tandem and the cruiser and a couple of other things as well. There's a painting, so make sure you've got your name on those sign-up lists. We'd like to thank Sonia Osteni, I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly, at the Lincoln Terrace Art Studio and Gallery. Her students' lovely pictures are right by the front of the house. Go take a look before you leave at those really cool pictures of the students. No, you can't have those. The kids are going to get them back, but we get to look at them today, and they're really cool. On your tables, you'll see we have some QR codes. They will take you to our website, where you can also go to the Tales for the Trails page, and you can see the bios, and you can see the pictures of all today's storytellers. I'm not going to waste your time telling you all the cool things our storytellers have done, and they've done lots of cool things, but you can read about them. And why am I not doing that? So you can actually hear the stories, because that's what we're here about. You're not here to hear me yammer on. We also have some baikus. I do need to thank Ralph Benaziak of the Daily Herald, who allowed us to use the term baiku, which he came up with. And no, they're not all 575, but they're bike-related poems, and we're calling them baikus, and we're rolling with it. I would like to just briefly introduce the usual suspects at the Skokie Bike Network. I'm David. I'm going to be your MC. I'm the ride leader today. Ben is our spiritual guru. He will have some thoughts and observations and, of course, feelings after the show. Yes! John is our tour manager. He's arranged for the video that we're going to have. And our fearless leader, our guide, is Charlie Sachs. And Charlie has some opening words for you today. Charlie?
Thank you, David. Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Sachs. And on behalf of the leadership, the usual suspects, and members of the Skokie Bike Network, the members are persons of interest, we are privileged to bring you our Tales from the Trails storytelling event. And I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to the success of this event, including you who came out this afternoon to join the fun. Welcome. We're glad you're here. The Skokie Bike Network is a community of cyclists whose mission is to support and promote cycling with the simple premise of better biking for better living. Our Tales from the Trails event is an opportunity for us to build our community through shared or unique experiences while riding a bike. In these times of the exaltation or sheer terror of artificial intelligence, our theme for this year's storytelling is bike intelligence. We rightly think of artificial intelligence and machine learning as a highly sophisticated and advanced human achievement. However, does it enrich our lives? Does it inspire us with wonder and joy to go beyond where we are, explore, experiment, and indulge in the delight of discovery? Bike intelligence takes a simple machine that enriches the lives of the most humble among us to our greatest achievers across cultures and through time. It is the very simplicity of the bicycle that transcends intelligence and makes it ingenious. So this afternoon, we invite you to venture beyond the algorithms of assembled data and ride along with our storytellers' firsthand accounts of bike intelligence, the things we've learned, or not, while riding our bicycles. And to start us off this afternoon, Ellen Barish. Ellen?
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, David. Hello, welcome. Woohoo! Second annual. We hope there are many, many more down the pike. Okay, are we ready? All right. I'm in a cafe on a rainy day in Philadelphia, where I'm visiting with my brother and his new boyfriend. We've ducked in for a bite on the way to our favorite garden to wait out the weather. That's when my phone rings. Thank you for that. Audio assistance. It's my grown daughter, Emily, calling from Chicago. Since I'm out of town and I want to stay fully in the moment and make a good impression on this man with whom my brother is now serious, I figure I'll call her later, after lunch in the garden. We order and my brother's phone rings. It's Emily again. She knows we're together, but I wave him off saying, later. Our salads arrive and my cell buzzes and I see a series of texts in all caps. Mom, pick up! I put my fork down and I call. Mom, my daughter says, in between breaths, I've been calling and calling. I need you to track Daddy's phone now. No time to explain, just check his phone location and tell me where it is. I knew that she and my husband had plans to bike together that day. We had just gifted her with a new bike, and she was looking for a route from her condo in Logan Square to her office on Wabash. David offered to escort her, as mapping out bike routes is one of his superpowers. But between her panicked voice and city traffic, I couldn't make out what was happening. Mom, you gotta look on your phone. Where is Dad's phone now? What do you mean? How should I know? Isn't Dad right there with you? What's going on? Mom, you have a tracker for Dad's phone on your phone, right? Just check it, please. That's when I get it, at least the gist. For reasons that were not yet clear, my husband's phone was not with my husband. I'm getting irritated looks from the cafe patrons, so I excuse myself and I head outside into the rain. Mom, where is it now? Okay. The dot is moving north on State towards Ontario. I hear her shout, Dad, we need to head north towards Ontario. What's going on? Dad's bike bag is gone. It has his phone, keys, and tools in it, but we can find his phone with your tracker. Why don't you call the police? Mom, that'll take far too long. Everything will be long gone. So you're going after it yourself? Yes! We're on our bikes. Dad is ahead of me, and I'm directing him based on what you tell me. Oh my God, Em, you're on the bike as we speak? Yes! Where is his phone now? Looks like it's heading west to Michigan Avenue, but it's going slow? That's good. It means whoever has it is on foot. Dad, we need to get to Michigan Avenue. I'm shaking my head in disbelief at all of this, rain dripping down the back of my neck. Em, what are you planning to do when you catch up with it? I don't know, but I'm gonna get it back. I have never heard her sound so determined. Where is it now? Looks like it moved to the other side of Michigan and it's crossing Erie. Dad, we need to get to Erie. I track the dot of my husband's face, now possibly in the hands of a stranger, on my iPhone for about another 5 minutes when Emily says, I see a guy with Dad's bag around his shoulder. Gotta go! And she clicks off. I return to the cafe, soaking wet. My head is spinning. My brother and his boyfriend have finished lunch, paid for it, and the table is already being cleared. My chicken salad. And we run to the car where I fill him in. I can't believe they are going after the phone by themselves. My brother says, it'll be okay, Elle. She's with her dad. But they're on bikes, on Michigan Avenue, chasing after a thief. My brother's new boyfriend offers me a sympathetic smile, and I think I'm going to like this guy. We're on our way to the garden when Emily calls again. Mom, we caught up with the guy. He threw us the bag, but he kept the phone. What? Mom, where is Dad's phone? I pull my cell from my bag and narrate the movements of the dot for another few minutes, and then she clicks off again. All of us, my husband and 2 daughters and me, have been riding bikes since we were all young, and we are all quite comfortable on 2 wheels. But this scenario is on steroids. I'm picturing my 4'11" daughter on her new Trek Verve, dodging traffic and parked cars, navigating walkers and stoplights, holding the handlebar in one hand and her cell phone in the other, and yelling directions to her father, who is just a few bike paces ahead of her. There is bike confidence and there's bike crazy. I'm more than 600 miles away. My heart is pumping out of my chest, powerless to do anything except watch and wait. We park at the garden, pick up umbrellas, walk the grounds, but I'm still shaking. I'm in a spectacular garden, but my head, my heart, my soul are on the Chicago streets praying that my husband and daughter aren't headed towards a potentially dangerous confrontation. My brother, who's a psychotherapist, reminds me that Emily is smart, and she's with her father, who is also relatively smart. We are in a garden, so let's let the garden do its magic. That's my brother. Soon the beauty of nature, dewy with rain, is calming me, and after about 20 minutes, I'm breathing easy again. But when we return to the car, Emily FaceTimes me. Mom! She flashes a big teethy smile, holding a mug of beer now at the Montrose Saloon with my husband and her best friend. We did it. We got Dad's bag, wallet, keys, and phone back. Oh my God, Em. He spoke very little English, but from what we could make out, he found the bag on the street, so he didn't steal it. Okay, and then my husband enters the frame of my phone. He's got a beer in his hand. The bag just fell off, but I didn't notice it until Wacker and Kinsey. It was Emily's idea to get you to track it from your phone. They tell me that in between calls to me and my brother, they had called my younger daughter, Jenny, in Los Angeles, whose husband is very tech-savvy. If they couldn't reach me, they were considering ways to hack into my phone. We were in 3 states across the country, but this ride had become a family affair, and only half of us were on bikes. Emily and David had, all told, pedaled more than a mile from Wacker to Water Tower to catch up to a guy who could only be identified by my husband's bike bag. When they caught sight of him, Emily walked right over, asked him to give her the phone, and because they were in a large crowd, she was very lucky, he gave it to them. I gave him $10 and he walked away, but when Dad checked his wallet, he noticed $100 was missing. My daughter holds her beer up and says, "So we're celebrating. Thank goodness for my new bike. And your phone tracker," my husband adds, of which you'll hear about more later. Emily toasts my brother and his boyfriend, clicks off with a spirited, "Love you, Mom, gotta go." And when my brother drops me off at my dear friend Elise's house where I've been staying, I head straight for her fridge, pour us both a glass of wine, and raise it in relief and celebration for bicycles and the way my family rolls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. This is sort of the time where the MC of a show may hear the story and come back on stage and offer a few observations about the previous story. That's not going to happen. But what I am going to do is welcome back Charlie Sachs to tell his story. Charlie?
Thank you, David. The story is called Looking for Lincoln. It's hot, steamy hot. A warm June day in central Illinois where the sun beats down from the clear sky and the heat radiates from the dark pavement. The air offers no relief as the humidity inhibits the cooling evaporation of sweat from my skin while I roll along on my bicycle. 3 days in on this tour, as the miles accumulate, so does the heat. I stop to take a break, drink some water, and take in the surrounding rural landscape. It's quiet and calm. I see a sign in the middle of a roadside park that looks of interest, an historic marker of sorts. I walk over to the sign and learn that I had stumbled upon a Looking for Lincoln historic site. It's one of many Looking for Lincoln sites throughout the Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area in central Illinois. These sites tell the story of Lincoln's almost 30 years in Illinois, communities where he worked, traveled, and lived. This site was in DeWitt, whereas the story is told in the spring of 1854, 9 local women, joined by others from Springfield, plotted against the village saloon frequented by their menfolk. The ladies banded together and crusaded against the demon whiskey. They subsequently stormed the saloon, rolled the whiskey barrels into the street, destroyed the kegs, and poured the vile liquid into the ground. Shortly thereafter, they found themselves in the DeWitt County Courthouse, charged with riotously, unlawfully, and with force, turning out, wasting, and destroying 10 gallons of whiskey of the value of $5. They had not yet hired a defense attorney, but it just so happened Abraham Lincoln was in the courtroom and offered his services. Lincoln argued the ladies were not criminal but righteous and moral women attempting to save the men from the evils of alcohol. He declared that they had been prompted by the same spirit and conviction as those who cast tea into the harbor during the Boston Tea Party. At this point, I can just imagine an exasperated judge who, given the nature of the 19th century circuit court, traveled with Lincoln and likely knew him well. Recognizing the absurdity of equating vandalizing the saloon with the Boston Tea Party, interrupting Lincoln's oratory and saying something to the effect of, Abe, I get it. The guy's had it coming, but trash in a saloon is still against the law. Lincoln lost the case. The judge imposed a fine of $2 on each of the accused. The money, however, according to local law, was never collected. And thus, through our able and earnest Abe, justice was served. After a lift from the laugh, I got back on my bike with a smirk, happily pocketing the souvenir of an unexpected joy of a good story. I rode off content with the sweat, heat, and humidity. Among the things I enjoy about biking in a place I've never been nor know nothing about are those moments of unexpected finds. Then there are the mere coincidences when I meet complete strangers, and the only things we have in common are the heat, air, dirt, and sweat. Stripped down to our basic humanity, we humbly share our experience with levity and humor. One such experience was in rural Logan County, where a woman looked out of her yard and found a bunch of aging, lycra-clad aliens from the mysterious Chicago nebula. We were clustered next to our house in a truly pathetic attempt to hide from an ominous, dangerous storm rolling across the farm country. Clearly out of our element and clueless about what to do with the impending storm, she peered out of her door and barked at us, "What are you doing here? Get inside!" It was a spontaneous, generous offer of shelter from the furious winds and pelting rains to strangers who had landed in her lawn. On another day, on another ride, there was the congregation that opened their church to offer snacks and refreshments to the sweaty swarm of our group. It was a dying church and a dying community, but they loved both and were happy to share their food and tours of their small church. It was the 150th anniversary year of the founding of their church, and they seemed grateful to have us to share their story. In a simple, open, shared moment of connection, free of presumption, posture, or pretense. When I reflect on these moments and the accounts of Lincoln's early career and speeches, I'm always amazed how he was able to express our shared values, and even with the weight of 4 years of brutal civil war, could still muster the graciousness to speak to our better nature in seeking healing and reconciliation. What I've learned on these bike tours while looking for Lincoln is how in these simple moments the sparsely settled prairie of Illinois cultivated and nurtured this giant of history, and how this spirit still lives today. Wheeling around central Illinois, looking for Lincoln markers are everywhere. While the stories range from the mundane to the memorable, they're always a joy, and some are real gems. Biking around Chicago, they're no looking for Lincoln markers. My daily commutes and errands are characterized by acute alertness and seasoned experience, reading the traffic and keeping a wary eye on the distracted, impaired, or agitated driver in a vehicle that is often too big for them, the road, or its purpose. Of course, keeping a cautious eye out for trouble, I inevitably find it. However, I've also learned to be mindful, to be looking for Lincoln, those moments of shared basic humanity, humility, levity, and generosity. And guess what? When I look, I find them everywhere. Be well, live well, ride on. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Just a reminder to everybody in the room, we are not in DeWitt County, we're in Cook County. And right back there are bartenders who can soothe your needs. So there is no need to flush all the liquid away. I think we can put it to good use, and I think that's a really noble way to live. And speaking of a noble way to live, is Charlie, being able to ride with you and have conversations with you while in the saddle or at breakfast, as all our kibitzer friends would know, that is part of the beauty of being in a community of cyclists. Thank you so much. So, I know we started this show with a little bit of a frenzy. There was a little bit of intensity, and there was somebody screaming at their mom. I think we now need to take a literary moment, and to help us with that is our poet, Jeff Balch.
I stand before you today to offer 2 Shakespearean sonnets. I'm going to borrow some of Shakespeare's words, so I felt it appropriate to borrow some of his wardrobe as well. It's not every day that one gets to tell a story or recite a sonnet having to do with bicycling. I treasure this moment. I'm glad to have you all with me today. The first sonnet might be familiar to some of you. It does not have anything to do with bicycling. The second sonnet will, but I have to offer you the first one in order to contextualize the second one. The first is Sonnet 18 by the bard himself, William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Thank you. Quick costume change. Now it will all make sense. I offer you Sonnet 18b. This goes out to poetry-loving bicyclists everywhere and to Shakespeare. And I'm pleased to be sharing the stage with a tandem bicycle. This is a tribute to my wife's and my tandem. Shall we prepare thee for a summer's day? Thou art still lovely, though thou needst a scrub. We pump thy tubes, rule out small leaks, we pray. Inspect thy brakes and rims. Ah, there's the rub. You get it. We true thy wheels, test spokes for undue strain, and try thy gear shift for response and squeak. Then lubricate derailleur, hub, and chain, and give thy handlebar and seat a tweak. We check thy cable for impediment, conduct rear blinker and front headlight test, confirm thy bottle hath no sediment. Thy riders, helmeted and brightly dressed, emancipated from the winter's chill, we pedal, panting, up the paltry hill. Thank you.
I pray, dear Jeff, 'twas such a hit. It wasn't nearly that kind of stuff. Thank you so much. We're going to move in a different direction. Maybe we'll clap our hands. Charlie McShane has a song for us.
Hello, folks. Actually, The musical interlude is also for you guys. It is audience participation. It's a fun little song called Freedom on Two Wheels. It has a chorus, which I am about to teach you now. So it goes like this. Freedom on two wheels, freedom on two wheels. It's fun to ride your bicycle. It's freedom on two wheels. Let's try that now. Freedom on two wheels, freedom on two wheels. It's fun to ride a bicycle. It's freedom on two wheels. That was pretty pitiful, but it'll have to do for now. You'll improve as the song goes on. It's fun to ride a bicycle. You can ride most any day. Get to know your neighborhood in a friendly kind of way. When you wave hello to neighbors, they'll wave right back, you'll see. They know you won't run over them in a giant SUV. Freedom on two wheels, freedom on two wheels. It's fun to ride a bicycle. It's freedom on two wheels. Take a trip to see a friend. You can ride it where you want. Pedal up an appetite to your favorite restaurant. You can bike to work or go to school or take off on a lark. You can ride your bike most any place 'cause you got no car to park. Freedom on two wheels, freedom on two wheels. It's fun to ride a bicycle. That's freedom on two wheels. Much better. It's cheap to ride a bicycle. You don't burn no gas or oil. Don't have to pay a ransom when you get an overhaul. You can, it cleans the air and clears your lungs when there's one less automobile. It's fun to ride your bicycle. It's freedom on two wheels. Freedom on two wheels. Freedom on two wheels. It's fun to ride a bicycle. It's freedom on two wheels. Your turn to star now. Freedom on two wheels. Freedom on two wheels. It's fun to ride a bicycle. It's freedom on two wheels. Thank you. Thanks, Skokie Bike Club. Thank you, Sketchbook Brewery. And our lovely bartenders over there. Go over here.
I know nobody in the room can, vibe with the sentiments of Charlie's song. He didn't he didn't sing about anything that you've ever experienced. I apologize for that interruption. So we're going to return to biking, because he didn't take us there. Our next storyteller is Avisha Michael.
I am on my green vintage bike under a canopy of trees, and the sun is just trickling through the light green leaves, and I breathe in the smell of a soft rain on a Chicago spring day, and a wave of contentment comes over me with the breeze. I feel free. The end of the block meets the Chicago River, and that is where my stepdad's house is. He bought it decades prior when he married my mom, and yet they've been divorced many, many years, but we are still close like family. As I pedal, I see his home up on the right, and a wave of tenderness fills me. I think to myself, one day soon, I won't be riding from my apartment to his house. One day soon, I won't be coming over to garden in his backyard or coming over on a Sunday evening for dinner. Things have been shifting really quickly. His memory is fading along with his eyesight. Howard has been there for me in ways that no other person has in my life. He is one of my absolute greatest supporters. Now, when I finally went for my lifelong dream after 40 years and opened up a pottery studio in LA a decade ago, it was my dream since I was 8 years old. My mom, who's here today, put me in my first class at Little Street. And when I opened up that studio, my Kickstarter raised everything but the funds for a kiln, and Howard helped me. And when 8 years later, I had to close that studio, my beloved studio, and leave my life and my business behind, Howard said to me, "Come to Chicago. I will give you a place to heal." And when months after landing in Chicago, my back went out from the trauma I had been through, for 4 months, Howard was there for me. I would text him grocery lists on the phone, and he would take that list and get on his bike and go to the store, and he would do his best, but my lists were completely foreign to him. You see, Howard grew up on a Midwest diet, hot dogs and hamburgers, and I grew up on a hippie diet. Tofu, brewer's yeast, rice, you get it. So he did his best, but when he would show up at my apartment and unpack my groceries on my counter and I was laying there watching him, well, where I asked for coconut milk, he got chocolate milk. And where I asked for rice crackers being gluten-free, he got whole round wheat thins. And when I asked for hummus, he unpacked 3-bean salad. I didn't say anything for a while, but finally, because I was gluten-free and dairy-free at the time, I finally said, I said something, and his answer was, well, it was close. So, at first, he did his absolute best to care for me. And in my bike basket, I'm on my green bike, and I have his absolute favorite. I have cranberry oatmeal cookies that are home-baked. I stayed up really late making them for him because it is his 76th birthday today. Now, my bike comes to a stop in front of his house. And I realize just how precious these moments are and how fleeting they are and how much I cherish him. And I am so grateful because, at least for now, he is in his home and I am just a 5-minute bike ride away. Now, a year prior, I found this green bike on Facebook and I was so excited. And I called him and I said, "Do you want to go see this bike with me and inspect it for me?" And he said, "Sure." He loves bikes. Mainly because when he was very young, he went to the doctor and 2 consecutive doctors gave him penicillin for an earache. What they didn't know at the time was that he was severely allergic. He almost died. He was in the hospital for 3 months and he lost most of his eyesight. He became legally blind at just 3 years old, so he never learned to drive, and bicycling became his whole world. It was pure freedom for him. Now, out of college, I also moved back to Chicago like him, but it was because I grew up in Chicago. Now, Howard always tells me of the story that after college, he moved from Michigan to Chicago and he got a job at the fanciest bike shop on Oak Street repairing bikes. He loved it. And he created an incredible life for himself. He worked for decades as a tax accountant at a major downtown bank, and he did all this so he could do what he loved the most in the world. He adored rehabbing buildings around Chicago. He always tells me lately still that he did all the plumbing for all those years, and he just loved to rot a good toilet. That was his favorite thing to do. He was the best landlord, and he rode his bike everywhere. So like him, I moved back to Chicago after college, and it was the summer of '97, and that was when I got my blue Trek bike with silver trim, and it was the first new bike I ever had in my entire life. I didn't have new things growing up, so it was really special. And when I got on that bike, everything disappeared. Like I felt like I was floating when I would ride every single weekend from Rogers Park to the Shed Aquarium, back and forth on the path. It was like a dream come true being on that bike for me. And then in 2001, I relocated to LA, and that blue bike came with me. And I rode that bike for 15 years, until May of 2013. At the time, I was teaching pottery classes all around LA, and that day I rode my bike from West Hollywood to Westwood, and I had all my tools and all the clay in my back bike basket, but I had a really, really bad headache. Like it was worse than any migraine I had ever had in my life. But I had a class at the retirement home, and they were my absolute favorite 90-year-old students, so nothing was going to stop me from that class. But it got so bad that I was passing Rodeo Drive on Wilshire. I finally had to get off my bike, and I keeled over and I threw up. The pain was unbearable. I don't know how I did it, but I walked my bike the next mile on Wilshire, and I ended up teaching that class because anyone who knows me, my work ethic is ridiculous. I don't know how I did it, and I don't remember anything after that class, except the next day, I was in the ER getting a spinal tap. And believe me, needles are my nemesis. I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way. But I found out that I had meningitis. And I spent the next 5 days in the ICU, and they let me out way too early. So I was in bed for the next month, unable to walk, unable to talk. And yet at some point, I started to heal. And as I started to heal, one day I walked out into my living room, and I saw my blue Trek bike leaning against the wall. But the tires were as deflated as I was at the time. And I never rode that bike again. It was like the ending of a relationship, because I find that a relationship with a bike you have that long, and I'm sure many people can relate, is like a partnership. And this all flashed as I bring my green bike to a stop in front of my stepdad's house in May on his birthday. The green bike that I found off Facebook that he helped me fix up in his garage. I mean, I hadn't been on a bike in 10 whole years. I missed it so much. But his resilience and courage gave me the strength to find safety on a bike again, and I figured if he could find safety, I could too. So I park my bike in front of his house, and I walk in to find him in the kitchen, and I hand him the cookies that I baked him, and I say, "Happy birthday!" And I give him a very rare hug. He's not a hugger, he's an accountant. And I say to him, you know, a friend once told me that we really should celebrate our moms on our birthdays, because if it weren't for our moms, we wouldn't even be here. And he lights up. I mean, he adored his mom. And he says to me, you know, my mom used to always bake me the biggest chocolate cake with all this chocolate frosting every single year on my birthday. And I say, but you're allergic to chocolate. And he says, yeah. I mean, I get really angry, but she baked it every single year for me. And I thought, wow, now that is a mother's love. So I really soak up this moment because I know things are shifting really quickly, and I adore hearing stories from his childhood. And that's because short-term memories are few and far between. And he asks me, did you drive here? And I say, no, I rode my bike. It is a gorgeous day outside today. And he smiles with pride. And he grabs a cookie I made him, and we both walk outside, and I get back on my bike, and I get ready to leave, and he looks so happy. He gets so much joy when I bike, even though his bike has been sitting in the garage with flat tires lately, and his support truly gave me the courage to bike again, and I'm so, so grateful. And I say, happy birthday, I will be back tomorrow. I'll bring you more cookies that I baked you. And he smiles, and He lowers his gaze in this really soft way that he does. And from behind his glasses and under his blue baseball cap, he says, "Ride safe, Avi." Now, Avi is my nickname that I grew up with, and only family calls me Avi. He may be my mom's ex-husband, but he is simply family to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Avisha. I think most people in this room know that a bicycle can lead us to love, but we may not always realize all the ways in which it does so. Thank you so much for your beautiful story. We are now going across the pond to ride with Dan Littoff.
Hi, I'm Dan from Evanston. I'm a doctor working in Chicago, and I ride with the Evanston Bike Club and the Kibitzers, which are over there. All right, today I'm going to share an adventure of physical endurance, sleep deprivation, and cultural illiteracy. In 1995, when I was 46 years old, I cycled from Paris to the coast of France and back. Paris-Brest-Paris, or PBP, is a cycling event older than the Tour de France. It was first held in 1891 to show that the bicycle, the epitome of high tech at the time, could travel long distances. PBP is an amateur event. It's held every 4 years, and it requires riders to train to qualify. The year of the event, I had to complete a series of qualifying rides in the United States called brevets, which ranged from 125 to 370 miles. PBP is 750 miles and must be completed in under 90 hours. Riders need to arrive at checkpoints called controls, spaced every 30 to 50 miles. The clock does not stop. When you rest, when you eat, or even when you sleep is up to each rider. My PBP ride started in a suburb of Paris at 8 p.m. The French cue sheets with distances in kilometers were difficult to read. In 1995, there was no GPS. So the only way I was able to navigate was to follow the red taillights in front of me. There are about 3,000 riders, most French, and less than 200 Americans. The others came from the UK, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, and even some from Australia. We rode in pace lines. All the riders called out the turns in French. That was the common language for everyone. À droite, go right. À gauche, go left. Tout droit, go straight. Cycling in Western France is similar to cycling in southern Wisconsin, where I trained for the ride. It's very hilly and filled with small towns connected by lightly traveled roads. In Wisconsin, the towns are all in the valleys. French towns built during the Middle Ages are located on the tops of hills. So we had to climb to reach the control and the food. As you know, bikers are fueled by carbs. And let me tell you, French carbs are the best, especially the baguettes and the pastries. I enjoyed living off the land, stopping at patisseries along the way. The rest stops had French food. And we had our choice of poulet, chicken, or poisson, fish. Every dish was accompanied by French green beans and French bread. Between rest stops, spectators offered us cake, gâteau, and café, even in the middle of the night, and wished us bon chance, good luck. At around the 250-mile point, after 26 hours of riding, I got to sleep for 2 hours. I struggled to reach Brest, the turnaround point, but I arrived a half hour late. It looked like I was going to be disqualified. In past PBPs, the Americans had a reputation for not finishing the ride, and were looked down upon by the French. They felt Americans were not serious bike riders. I was close to tears. After all the training, not finishing and letting down my country would have crushed me. The checkpoint official kindly asked whether I had had mechanical difficulties, which could explain my late arrival. Well, in fact, earlier a mechanic had adjusted a wobbly wheel on my bike. The official signed my time card, giving me a second chance. I had to make it to the next control in Carhaix in time. It wasn't going to be easy. In between was a mountain. Fueled by plenty of French roast coffee and determination, I made it. Around mile 500, 60 hours into the ride, I heard rumors we would get an extra hour due to the hot weather, but I didn't know whether to believe him. At 2 a.m., I stopped at a bar called the Pomme d'Or, the Golden Apple. I thought, if I could get a coffee, I could make it to the next control and sleep. So I sat down on the bar. Next thing, I was awoken by a tap on the shoulder. The barkeep beckoned me to follow him to a back room, which had mattresses on the floor strewn with sleeping bike riders. They asked me how long I wished to sleep. 2 hours. They wrote my wake-up time on a tag and tied it to my big toe, like they do for dead bodies at a morgue. 2 hours later, I woke up somewhat refreshed. The goal, get to the next control. It was always about getting to the next control. With less than 150 miles left, I was within striking distance of the finish line, and it was daylight. I was feeling confident. So I wasted 5 minutes to buy a Forget Bicycle Club cycling cap. Très chic, no? As a medical intern, I often went without sleep, but riding a bike on only 2 hours of sleep was quite an effort. While riding through the countryside, I noticed that the trees had been trimmed by the French farmers into shapes, kind of like a topiary. I saw a face in one, an elephant in another. I took pictures of the trees with my camera. When I got back home and viewed the slides, the trees looked just like ordinary trees. After 80 hours of riding, I must have been hallucinating. Though to this day, I still remember those sculpted trees. People lined the streets as we rode through the towns near the finish, cheering, "Allez, allez." Kids gave us high fives. I rolled into the final control, elated that I was an official finisher. My time was under 90 hours, 89 hours and 25 minutes. I went back to the hotel to sleep, and I didn't wake up till the next night. My roommate and I went out to dinner to celebrate. We were missing American food, so we hit the Hard Rock Cafe, Paris, for cheeseburgers and Budweisers. However, we did order a local specialty, French fries. Thank you.
Has anybody in the room ever done a brevet? Dan, that'll tell you how special the achievement was. You got a room full of cyclists. And none of them are hallucinating. Thank you so much. Our next storyteller is Sherry Rita. Before Sherry starts, you notice that my phone tracker has become an issue in a story. My phone is in this room somewhere, and I don't know where it is. And my phone has the number randomizer with which we are going to choose the winners of the various raffles, assuming we locate that phone. But we'll figure that out. In the meantime, Sherry?
This is called the Somewhat Open Road. I was 8 3/4 years old already, and I knew I was late to the party. Most of the kids on the block had lost their training wheels or set them high as badges of mastery. They zipped by me, standing on pedals to push the speed on their 14 or 16 inchers. Some of them stood on banana seats while navigating hairpin turns. My 6-year-old sister already rode around the block, though she did have a disturbing tendency to fall flat on her forehead. She kept forgetting to put her hands out when she fell. My 4-year-old sister, the wild-haired, red-headed one who'd already seen the emergency room 5 times, she retained her training wheels because she couldn't get them off by herself. But they hovered a good 5 inches above the ground. She had yanked them up with her own 2 hands. My 4-year-old brother was getting his start this weekend. It was exactly like I was one of those Jane Austen heroines, you know, the firstborn who hadn't gotten married yet. But I was okay with that. I was literally dragging my feet. I continued to drive my too small 12-inch bike gingerly. I kept 3 of its 4 wheels firmly on the sidewalk, while the 4th one hovered close by on reserve. I was respectful of my advanced age, and my exceptional cowardice. My dad, though, was mortified. Like Mrs. Bennett from Pride and Prejudice, he couldn't bear the fact that my siblings and peers had surpassed me. So when July hit and my 9th birthday loomed, my dad got serious about my progress. Every night before dinner, he hauled my bike onto the front sidewalk and made me get on. Then he'd run with it, holding onto the seat and handlebars of the bike as I rode it. The thing was, you know, I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but when somebody's holding the bike and they're running, like it was at an alarming angle, right? When he let go, there was nothing I could do but fall. My dad would moan and say, "Come on," and I'd whine, "Can't we be done now?" I tried to skip forward on my bike, trying to get a sense of balance, but my dad wasn't having it. He'd run out of patience. "You need speed," he said with an exasperated sigh. So I'd stop, suck in my tears, wait for him to take the bike in hand again, and again and again. It was our very own proprietary training formula. Run, release, mock, sigh, repeat. And then finally one night my dad got inspired. Or maybe he was just too tired to run anymore. I don't know. But he said, listen, just pretend to be the little engine that could. So I did. I walked my bike, and then I jogged it, and then I put my feet on the pedals, chanting, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, until I was, aloft. Anyway, it felt like flying, and I soared all the way down our long, straight suburban block, and it was time to turn the corner. I just looked where I wanted to go, and I went there. I made it all the way around the block that day. My dad cheering, trotting behind me, barely keeping up. I was overjoyed, delighted, and soon the most arrogant rider on the block. Almost immediately, I demanded a new 16-incher befitting my status as a real bike rider. I wanted one that would match the one my friend Jean Marie rode. Jean Marie and I both had the same white rubber boots from Zaire, and we both wear our hair exactly the same way, although hers was blonde and straight while mine was black and curly. She had freckles and long sleeves all year while I turned chestnut brown in the sun, but we were twins, and we deserved twin bikes. I told my parents, I didn't ask, I told them to buy me a 16-inch pink and white Schwinn, like Jean Marie's. I kind of knew I wouldn't get one. Schwinns were the Cadillacs of bicycles. My parents couldn't afford any kind of Cadillac. They couldn't even afford their 10-year-old Ford. They shared it with Jean Marie's parents, who paid the $25 insurance bill each month. My parents were the king and queen, anyway, of Kingdom ersatz. They never bought the original when a copy would do. Instead of buying me a Gibson guitar to help cure my tone deafness, my dad bought me a giant barrel-bodied thing at the Western Auto Store. Instead of buying me a Barbie when I was 6, they bought this doll made out of brittle plastic pieces that were held together by rubber bands. Its arms couldn't even come off. And instead of Barbie accessories, they tried to convince me that the fringes of our welcome mat made great Barbie food. So they meant well. And on my 9th birthday, the week after I learned to ride, my parents unveiled a cheap, no-name, blue-green bicycle and their heartfelt declaration that pink was old hat. I grimaced, rode off without a thank you, and headed straight to Jean Marie's. By the time I got there, though, I'd convinced myself that my bike was pretty cool. And me too. I'd already figured out, after all, how to speed, how to stop, how to make figure eights. I offered each of my moves to Jean Marie, who was willing to believe I'd only been hiding my skill till the time was ripe. Before long, we two were leaping and spinning like dolphins of the open road. We drove our bikes in and out of the middle of the street. We swung and swerved and looped away from each other and back again, found the center, and in a memorable finale, we crashed. Entangled, smack in the middle of the intersection, with a car on the way. Regardless of our horror, we were pretty safe. The car was probably going about 10 miles an hour, and he saw us and stopped and waited while we hobbled our deeply injured bikes to the parkway grass. Jean Marie was not only my twin, she was my best friend, too. She didn't tell me to watch where I was going. She didn't say I should have shut up and rode. She just put her mangled bike down on top of mine since they were stuck together, and then jumped back up and invented a survival dance of joy. Kind of like, Elated, I learned it, and we perfected it before we were yanking our poor mangled bikes upright. And then we got to work, pulling fenders, straightening spokes, aligning the greasy chains piece by piece on the gears. By the time we were done, our bikes were far less bent out of shape than our parents were going to be. To make them happy, we pretended to be chastened. We observed a moment of abashed silence. before heading out once again to soak up the freedom of the somewhat open road.
And those of us who know Sherry know she hasn't looked back ever since. Thank you so much for that story, Sherry. Oh, and by the way, men's room. So, Ben, we will be able to pull random numbers and choose winners for all of our various giveaways. So, our next storyteller is me. I am white-knuckling riding my bike. Sheets of rain are falling and gusts of wind are pushing me all over the road. I am using all of my strength and all of my concentration to avoid being swept into traffic or parked cars. I have a good raincoat and I can more or less see through my sunglasses, which are wet from precipitation and, of course, rain. I'm 100% committed to being in the present and 100% sure that this may not be enough to get me home in one piece. I do not have a spare space, physical, mental, or spiritual, to contemplate why I am here. I take for granted that this is where I am, and I focus on what I must do to stay upright and alive. Early this morning, I rode my bike to work, and all I had to consider was that it was already blazing hot at 5 a.m. And that's also how this ride home started. The first few miles, I could feel sweat dripping from my forehead to my sunglasses, but I was flying home, being pushed by a brisk south wind. I was and I am eager to get home because today is my wife's birthday. By the time I get north of Irving Park Road, the clouds are darkening the sky, and it's a little cooler, and the wind is now out of the west, and it's blowing way harder, and I feel just a couple of drops of precipitation. I stop at a stoplight, and I hear a polyphonic melodic sound. Was this some kind of warning? Was this a lightning siren? I ask a couple of guys who I see at a corner, and they just shrug. And I keep pedaling. Rain was starting to come down, and I looked for a place to put on a raincoat. I find a little taqueria a little farther north where I can pull in under an overhang, and I put it on. And I just stand there for a couple of minutes, contemplating, staring at the sky, trying to figure out what's going home. And my inner voice says, just go home. And I get back on my bike. Conditions are worse. I need my full concentration. I'm holding on to my handlebars as if they are precious. I'm concentrating on the road as if it's the only thing in the world that matters, and I ride in this reptilian state for a couple of miles, feeling as if I'm fighting for each turn of the pedal. And in hindsight, it was kind of like that time I was swimming in the lake and I got a little too far from the beach, and I wasn't really sure whether I could make it back. I'm now riding with a blank mind, only aware of what is in front of me and what I calculate might be around the corner and what I need to do. I see a fire station ahead on California in Rogers Park. There's an open garage door, and I just ride right in. And again, I stand watching, staring at the sky, which is now almost black with chaotic winds. The fire engine gets called, and of course that means I have to leave. So I'm back on the street, riding as if through a tempest during a total eclipse. Fortunately, I see an awning over an electronics store a block or two north of the fire station. And I pull in, and again, just stand mesmerized, watching the clouds and the rain and the dancing trees. And I stand with the owner who smokes an unending stream of cigarettes, and we never exchange a word, not even one of greeting or thanks. And I'm with him for what seems like hours, but was likely about 15 minutes. And we just stand next to each other, watching color come back into the sky as the clouds thin, the rain slow, and the winds calm. I'm back on my bike. The street is now hot and steamy, but calm with isolated puddles. And as I ride now, I have time to reflect on what had been going on. And I thought about the rain and the wind and the challenge. I know. But what I didn't think about was the birthday girl and what she was doing while I was coping with the elements. I didn't know that she knew more about my trip than I did. From watching TV weather people discussing the evening's events like sportcasters and color play-by-play announcers and color analysts calling a ball game, or political analysts on election night, I didn't consider that she was unable to get hold of me, and I didn't try to get a hold of her. I didn't consider that I was outside, and what I later learned, it was a tornado that had touched down about a mile from the fire station. Yep, Damon and Kathy, right by your house. I was a little too busy trying to cope to consider that she was safe in our home, yet there was nothing that she could do. And she sees me on the little dot on her phone that you guys all know about. And then she sees the weather maps on television and sees those two dots converging on that fire station. She didn't know if her husband was injured or dead, and she was powerless to do anything about it until I got home. And when I get home, she's visibly shaken and still riding through her tornado. She began to tell me how she experienced things. And as you know by now, we have that app. And she explained through tears about tracking me. And I didn't think taking out my phone at the taqueria or the fire station or the electronics store wouldn't have got me home any safer at all. But it might have let her know that her husband was alive. It might have reduced her level of stress on her birthday. I learned that day that we may think that we ride alone. Cycling is a solitary sport, but we share our ride with our loved ones. And any good cyclist stays in communication with their fellow riders. And sometimes those riders are at home. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening to all our storytellers. Thank you for listening to our summit. Thank you for listening to our songs. And thank you for participating in this community event right here at Sketchbook. I now have our spiritual guru, Ben Harris, to talk to us and to announce some winners.
So before I announce the winners, David mentioned something about community. And people always ask us, what does the Skokie Bike Network do? Well, we're an organization. And as Charlie freely admits, we call ourselves an organization, but that's kind of a stretch. We need some assistance. So if any of you want to get into helping the Skokie Bike Network to make Skokie a better place for safe riding. Some of you wear helmets. All of you should be wearing helmets. Make sure they're colorful. If you don't have one of these little leg protectors, get one. We have a lot of them. Thank you for Burke Engineering, and also thank you for Sketchbook for hosting us today. We share the road with a lot of people. Some things don't change, but a lot of things do change. This leg band I've had for many, many, many years. I used to have hair when I got this. They still have them, but the roads are changing. Engineering is changing. We need to be advocates for safe riding and to share the road for pedestrians, people that roll, and bicyclists. So your call to action is reach out to your village official, your city council person, or your neighbor and go, hey, let's go for a ride. Go shopping. Create that community. And before we leave, make sure you know the person next to you and ask them if you can go for a ride. Without further ado, we have some raffle items. Oh. The first one up is the cruiser, and Charlie's wife is going to be really happy that it's going to leave the garage because we all have too many bicycles. And our random, oh my Lord, there's over 50 people. I was, but I just put my name down as 50. Just kidding, just kidding.
That's all right, we're choosing between 1 and 49.
1 and 49.
Ready?
Yeah.
47!
Ho! Jeff Balch, B-A-L-C-H. Woo! At least stand up so people can see who you are. Woo! Next up is David.
We're getting there.
It's the tandem. And you got to be present to win. We can also help you get it back to wherever it's going, and you got to take it. 30 people. 29. John Schneider. Woo! Stand up. It's okay. Person 26 will ride with them home, okay? We have one more, and this is a limited edition print by Jay Ryan. He's a Skokie artist. He's done murals in the Care Animal Shelter. He's done the Skokie Bookmobile. He's also in the Children's Library. He's also done the sketch. He's done the mural outside of Sketchbook here. We have 39 people. Seventeen requires me to flip. Uh-oh. Renard, R-E-E-N-A-D, Salah. In closing, I want to give a big thank you to 125 plus people in the audience. Give yourselves a round of applause. If you didn't sign up and you want to be involved, just reach out to the Skokie Bike Network. We have a Facebook presence. You can also talk to anyone of Charlie, John, myself, or David. We need some help. We need some influx. We got some great ideas, and we want to thank, there's also representatives from the Chicago Herald, the Active Transportation Alliance, Ride Illinois. But again, thank you, and I want to repeat, Burke Engineering has graciously supplied over 1,000 of these. They're also, we're involved in the study for the Church Street parking lane, which we hope will go through. Have a great day, everybody.